Okay. And thanks, everyone. And that's just for people that couldn't make it today, or at some point, I would like to possibly post this on a YouTube page or share it with Daniel, whoever might be interested, because this should be a great conversation today. So again, thank you. All right, let's see if we can go to the next slide here. Okay, so this is part 4 of our series on REBT, and we have a special guest today. Daniel Fryer is joining us from France, so we're very excited and grateful to have him with us today. And just a quick overview, we're calling this a movement from irrational to rational thoughts. And if there's nothing else we try to accomplish in this group, it's to try to be a 5% more rational in our life. And I think we've achieved that. And so we've had 3 sessions, and we haven't done a page by page study, but we have done the 4 key ideas of Daniel's book. I hope I've done justice to it, Mr. Fryer. The first session was called From Demands to Flexible Preferences. Then on week 2, we had going from drama to a sense of perspective. And then last time we met, we talked about coping. So moving from I can't cope to I can cope. And then part 4 today, we're going to finish with moving from those put downs or that critical mindset to unconditional acceptance. And so we have talked about acceptance in our group before, but I'm hoping to get sort of a little more insight from Daniel. And he's worked with, I'm guessing, hundreds, probably thousands of people in his therapy work. And so I would be very happy to get his perspective. So our rough outline for today's meeting is I'd like to talk to Daniel for a little while. 20 to 30 minutes, and then if he's willing to take a few questions, and then we may be able to go into our breakout room for a little processing, and then I just have a few slides maybe to wind us up, but I'm going to try to be flexible today because we have a little different format. So okay. And let me back up here. No, this is where I want to introduce Daniel. And good morning, Daniel. I see you there. You're at near the top of my screen. I just have a very brief bio, which I'm just kind of clipped right off of your Amazon page. Daniel Fryer is a mental health and well-being consultant. That title covers a range of things, including consultancy and advice to various corporate sectors, psychotherapy, coaching, clinical hypnotherapy, workshop and webinar presenting, expert speaking, and content and copywriting. And he currently resides in France, although I believe your home country is Great Britain or England, if I'm not mistaken. So welcome, Daniel.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. So glad you could make it. And so I've just prepared a few questions for Daniel. And as we're going through our conversation here, please feel free to jot down some ideas that are significant for you, or if you have a question that we can talk about later. But first of all, Daniel, can you tell us a little bit about how you became interested in psychotherapy and specifically in REBT?
So many years ago, I used to be a journalist. I used to work in mainstream print media and contract publishing. I love writing. I didn't like journalism. And so at the age of 35, I was a little bored, a little frustrated, a little lost. And I just happened into a free training program for hypnotherapy. It was like an introduction. But like most introductions, it's designed to reel you in to the proper package, and it worked. So I did the introductory course. That led to a 6-month certificate in how to just hypnotize people, and then a year-long diploma on how to use hypnotherapy for various things. It turned out to be a very good course. It used to, for every condition, it would cover a variety of modalities, and both CBT and REBT would crop up a lot. And I quite liked REBT. When I did my journalism degree, it was journalism, and it covered 2 of the social sciences. So sociology was on there and philosophy was on there. So I knew a little bit about philosophy. I knew a little bit about Stoic philosophy. And even back then, I was forming the connection between REBT and what I'd learned on just the modules from this degree that I'd done. I also liked the REBT before, more than the CBT elements, because REBT was more in line with how I thought about life anyway, just from my own reading and my own perspectives. When we got to the end of that diploma in hypnotherapy, one of the tutors announced that he was actually developing another diploma that married rational emotive behavior therapy and its concepts more fully with hypnotherapy. So I studied that. And then after that, I just decided to do my master's in REBT at Goldsmiths College. And that was being taught by a guy called Windy Dryden, who you've probably heard of if you've looked up REBT, because he's this side of the pond anyway, one of the world's authorities on REBT. And he's written about 200 books by now, I think, probably more, on every single aspect of REBT. More academic in tone than mine, as you notice. Mine's got its tongue firmly in its cheek. But yeah, it all started with being bored with my current role and falling into a hypnotherapy thing and finding out that I was good at it. And then it just kind of unfolded like any path does as you walk it.
And how long have you been a formal therapist then, Daniel?
Since 2004, which is when I graduated
Okay.
in therapy diploma and started practicing.
20 years. Wow, great. 21 years. So my next question was, how this is a Stoic group, obviously. So how does REBT relate to Stoicism?
I mean, there's a lot.
Yeah.
First of all, I mean, they both get accused of being emotionless or trying to teach you how to be emotionless, which is, I think, couldn't be further from the truth. But that's one commonality. But both really, essentially, they're the pursuit of happiness, but they're the pursuit of happiness through self-mastery, through wisdom, through perseverance, through resilience. And they aim to teach you fortitude in the face of life's challenges and adversities, and also the correct expression of emotion in the face of them. So it doesn't want you to shy away from your emotions. It wants you to emote, but appropriately and correctly and proportionately to the thing that you're going through. It also covers a lot of deep philosophical concepts. Both REBT and Stoicism do. They both delve deep into things like courage, temperance, justice, wisdom, and so on. So I think there's a huge amount of correlation.
Interesting. It's interesting that you brought up the virtues there because, of course, we spend a lot of time talking about virtue and you use the word fortitude, and I do see that's a very good link between REBT and Stoicism. I did have a question about. It seems like in Albert Ellis's work, he talks a lot about the real goal is, like you said, happiness. He talks about enjoying ourselves or having fun. Is it fair to say that REBT is a type of hedonism or hedonistic philosophy?
Ah, it depends what you mean by hedonism.
Yeah.
Are you on about the the short term self-indulgent pursuit of pleasure, or are you on about the more philosophical long term concept? The one where you're aiming towards the satisfaction of your desires in that kind of like long term highest good proper aim of life kind of way.
Mm.
So, if short-term hedonism, no. Long-term hedonism, yes. So, do you want the donut now, or do you want to look good on the beach in July? Do you want to go out and get wrecked tonight, or do you want to be in the best possible frame of mind for that interview on Monday? So,
Right.
hedonism, yes, but that philosophical hedonism rather than the short-term self-indulgent hedonism that we're all used to thinking of it in terms of.
It's a really good distinction. Thank you. So it's a longer term hedonism. Yes, I like that. Thank you. So another thing I highlighted in your book, Daniel, which I've been telling people is so readable. It's really a fun read. You talk about emotional responsibility. Can you expand on that a little bit? Emotional responsibility.
Yeah. So in the face of anything, any situation, any challenge, any adversity, doesn't matter whether it's a situation, doesn't matter whether it's a person, it doesn't matter what it is, I am at all times completely responsible for the way I think, the way I feel, and the way I act. whether I've acted proportionately or disproportionately, whether I've acted rationally or irrationally, whether I've acted constructively or non-constructively, whether I've had an angry outburst or expressed a frustration, whether I'm stricken with anxiety or I'm just, occupied by a concern. The emotions and the thoughts and the feelings and the behaviors, they're mine. Nothing and no one makes me angry. Nothing and no one makes me anxious. Nothing and no one makes me depressed. Nothing and no one can drive me to drink or drugs. I'm responsible by the beliefs that I hold, obviously, but I'm responsible. And it's not about blame. So if you're anxious, if you're angry, if you keep outbursting, if you have got drug or alcohol problems, it's not to say it's your fault, because fault implies blame. And it's not about blame. It's about responsibility. It's about empowerment. If it's your responsibility, you can do something about it.
A great distinction. So it's not about blaming self or others, but the rational taking of responsibility. Thank you. That's great. So the theme of this session, or the part four, Daniel, of today was the idea of unconditional acceptance. Now, we've struggled with that sometimes. We've embraced it at other times. Of course, the Stoics have this idea of amor fati, love of your fate. But from your perspective as a therapist in the REBT, a school, can you talk about unconditional acceptance?
Yes, I can. And I think that since I wrote that book, funnily enough, I think both REBT and I can go further with it. So, at a fundamental level, so most people come to see me because they are hating on themselves. They put themselves down. It's not I made a mistake. It's I am a mistake. It's not I failed at that thing. It's I am a failure. It's not I lost there. It's I am a loser. It's these global negative put down statements that don't help you to feel very good about yourself. Um, Whereas unconditional acceptance is just to accept yourself, warts and all. I am good at that. I'm rubbish at that. I got that right. I got that wrong. This is an achievement. This is a failing. And you have every right to be that picture because you are a worthwhile, fallible human being. Worth is an innate quality. We all possess it. We don't become more worthy by achieving stuff, and we don't become less worthy by failing at things. It's an innate quality. We all have worth. We are humans. We are born here. We are living. We die. We have every right to be here as we do in the living bit. As we do the living bit, we're all fallible. We are going to make mistakes. It's guaranteed. We are going to have physical flaws. That's a given. We are going to have psychological flaws. That's also a given. And that's when for people are doubting themselves, but you extend that other acceptance out. So other people are also. So nobody else that you ever meet is completely stupid or completely nasty or completely this. They are also worthwhile and fallible human beings. And they have their good points and their bad points.
Mhm.
The tricky one to get your head around is the one where REBT calls it world acceptance.
Yeah.
So let's say I'm a perfectionist. If I'm a perfectionist, my approach to everything is all or nothing. So if I approach a project, if it's anything less than 100%, it's a write-off, it's a failure. So I would damn the project. That project was a failure. Whereas I think that we need to make a bigger deal of world acceptance and to accept the world unconditionally and everything that's in it. And I think we need to extend unconditional acceptance to include compassion. So we seem to be hating more than ever. I mean, in my therapy room, people are hating themselves more than ever,
Really.
hating other people more than ever. And that's just all around the world. We other everybody. But we're not very compassionate about the world we live in as well. And I think we need to bring more compassion into this idea of unconditional acceptance of the self, of others, and of the world. And by the mean, I mean the world is a big whole thing.
Mhm. So, that's excellent. And so, I think of you meeting with your clients, and you talk about how so many of them have this self-hatred, and that's a very difficult thing to hear. I like your emphasis on compassion. The follow-up question to that, Daniel, was, it's great to talk about unconditional acceptance and tolerance, but I can hear maybe some of my fellow Stoics saying, what about virtue? What about people that are truly doing bad things? Or what about, whatever politician you despise is doing X, Y, Z? What does it mean to unconditionally accept those kind of people?
So, I mean, again, it all depends on what you mean by virtue. And philosophy has a lot to say about virtues. Positive psychology makes a big deal about character strengths and virtues, and some people are more virtuous than others. Unconditional acceptance doesn't mean that you have to put up with somebody else's, BS. Um, I can accept you unconditionally as a worthwhile, fallible human being, but if you do me more harm than good, I have every right to also say, I don't want anything to do with you. Go. I accept you, but go away, far, far away. If you think about the justice system, technically, the justice system is supposed to be reparative. We accept people as worthwhile, fallible human beings, and jail isn't a punishment. It's meant to be rehabilitation. However, some people, you just realize, okay, you've done too much, you've gone too far. This isn't a rehabilitation program for you. It's life, or in certain states, it's the death sentence. You have to weigh up the pros and cons of somebody and then make an accurate and rational decision: rehabilitation or removal.
Interesting. Is it fair to say, Daniel, that this unconditional acceptance really is almost a spiritual perspective?
It can be. I mean,
Yeah.
elements of REBT are based on Buddhism, which is a spiritual practice. Unconditional acceptance comes into other spiritual practices. For instance, I'm a member of the Order of Bards, Ovates, and Druids, and they make a big deal out of acceptance.
Mhm.
It doesn't mean being a pushover.
Yeah.
Another virtue is justice.
Yeah.
Justice comes into
Exactly.
play. If you blot your copybook too much, you are a worthwhile, fallible human being, but justice is coming.
Yeah, that's very good. So a Stoic would definitely say, but these ideas have to be balanced with justice. So thank you. Excellent, excellent. So I also wanted to just touch briefly on, I sometimes wonder if Stoicism or REBT neglects the body, the physical body that we drag around every day. And then this might tie into your other book on hypnotherapy. Can you comment on those two ideas?
A little bit, yes.
Yeah.
So I don't think it does. I think mental health, very much mind and body, especially in the Western world, we're catching up on how much it's mind and body together, not mind and body separate. Um, REBT, when it explores your unhealthy beliefs, it will explore all the consequences of living your life according to them. And that will include the consequences to your body as well as your mind. So when you
Excellent.
explore the consequences of the healthy beliefs, if they decided to enact them, you're building a much better picture. It's more in line with their goals, but again, you're exploring all the consequences of the not only of it on the body but also the mind. Um, I think what they can neglect really, and what the field of psychotherapy is beginning to wake up to, because this psychotherapy is undergoing a transition. It's called the fourth wave. What is
Yeah.
neglected is the soul.
Oh,
To
okay.
to truly
Okay.
satisfied life, to work towards happiness and to deal with your mental health issues, it's not just mind and body; it's mind and body and soul together.
Nice. So the third wave was things like mindfulness or acceptance and commitment therapy. So then I had not heard they're adding a fourth approach there, the soul. Go ahead. Yeah.
So it's not so much a CBT thing. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Acceptance
Yeah.
and commitment therapy, compassion
Mhm.
focused therapy, these are called
Yeah.
third wave
Right.
CBTs. But the whole field of psychotherapy is on the precipice of what is being called the fourth wave,
Is
where
that
they're
right?
looking at bringing in spiritual practices, ecotherapy, energy work like Reiki healing, and also more pastoral spiritual coaching alongside the actual therapy, so that you
Yeah.
are not neglecting somebody's soul, however
Interesting.
it's presenting.
I think a lot of people in our group will respond to that idea. And I'm so happy we're recording this, Daniel, because I need to go back and think about these things much more that you're saying. And then in terms of, if someone's new on the call here and they're new to Stoicism, they have no idea what this REBT is about. What would you say from your years of experience? What's one idea or lesson that someone should take away from our conversation or just from, REBT?
So I think yes. So they share so many commonalities because one's based on the other. But for me, it really does start. All your problems stem from that word must, or mustn't, or should, or shouldn't. But in a very, very specific context. If you think about it in terms of the rigid expression of a desire for something. So it's okay to like things. We have preferences for everything, preferences for where we like to eat, preferences for the clothes we like to wear, preferences for who we like to hang out with, how we like to be treated, how we like to have set and achieved certain milestones in life. Preferences are fine. The problem is that must, turning that preference into a rigid, dogmatic, unbreakable command. So I like to be respected by people becomes so I have to be respected by people. I wish I had achieved that milestone becomes I should have achieved that milestone. Once you've tipped from a preference to a must, that's when all those other things creep in. You are more likely to orphalize. You're more likely to exhibit low frustration tolerance. You're more likely to put yourself or others down. And so it really, the heart of it just stems from flexible thinking. Stick to your preferences. Life is full of things that you wish you had, but you don't have to have. Things that you wish had happened, but didn't have to happen. Full of things that you hope happen, but there's nothing to say that they mustn't happen if conditions are so that they do.
So well stated. So look for that must and extract those shoulds. And I love the idea of establishing that flexible mentality, that flexible thinking. So very good. Thanks for prioritizing that. Any future, what are you working on now, or what are your plans for the future, Daniel? Any projects we should know about or look for?
Yes. So at the moment, I am living in a forest in the middle of the Dordogne Valley for a very specific reason. I'm studying druidry and ecotherapy. As I said, what's missing and where it's all going is we're going to go. Psychotherapy is going to be a bit more soulful, and I'm currently working on a pitch for a book that will include cherry picking the best bits of compassion focused therapy, the best bits of acceptance and commitment therapy, using REBT as that linchpin, bringing in elements of positive psychology, but also how you can use all that and bring more. When I talk about spirituality, I talk about nature. I'm with the American architect Frank Lloyd Wright on that one. I do believe in God, only I spell it Nature. How you can reinvigorate your soul by getting more in touch with nature, because as well as mind and body, it's mind and body and soul. We are not separate from the world, we're a part of it, and I think we need to wake up to that once more. And so my next book will hopefully go in that direction.
Excellent. Well, I'm just glad to hear there's more books forthcoming, because I will definitely be searching those up myself. So, Daniel, are you able or interested in taking? Do you have, if you have a few more minutes, a couple questions from the group? Or okay. So how we? Sorry, I wish I had a little better throat today, but I apologize. People in our group know that they're free to speak up, or if you'd like to use your hand, digital hand, I'll look for that. Before we let Daniel go, or I should say before we stop our formal interview, does anybody have any questions they would like to toss Daniel's way? Okay. Lauren, I think, it looks like, yeah, Lauren, go ahead. You're on mute though.
Good morning, Daniel. Thank you for joining our group today.
You're welcome.
I do have a question about your sentence. This is somewhere where I struggle, and maybe a lot of people do. The idea of I accept you, but go away. Okay. I mean, to my mind, accepting means you open your hands and you take it in, but then, the other side of that is, but go away. So that is something I struggle to. I understand the words and the concept in my head, but I don't feel that in my body. I struggle to accept what I want to go away. Also, so that's one question. The second one is, when in the world of psychology will we focus on the fact that we have created a world where many of us are constantly having to accept things that are unacceptable? Thank you.
Wow, two very deep questions there. So first one first. Yes, you're absolutely right. The knowing is one thing. Understanding is another. We call knowing intellectual understanding. Like, you may know how to garden. You may look out at your garden and go, right, I know how to weed it, I know how to mow it, I know how to plant things, I know how to care for things. That's intellectual understanding. In order to keep your garden looking lovely, or make it look lovely if it's turned into a jungle, you actually have to go out there and do it. You have to take your knowledge and put it into action. And that's the path of REBT, really. That's how you help people achieve their goals. They know they're being irrational. They know that anger is not the appropriate response. They know their anxiety isn't helping them. They know it. Sometimes they even know the beliefs that you help them to identify. The difficult part is helping them to act upon it, to put that understanding into action. It's very easy to say well, you can accept somebody as an unconditional, worthwhile, fallible human being, but it doesn't mean you have to accept them into your life if they've done you too many nasty things. Putting that into action so you believe it as well as understand it, that's the challenge. And it just takes practice, practice, practice until that understanding is internalized and you can put it into practice. Does that answer that one?
Thank you.
Yep. As for
Yep.
that was one question. Shall I answer the second one? I just wanted to check the first one was answered appropriately before I moved on.
I will say sort of. I mean, yes, I get the point. There's direct experience, and that makes a difference, right? You got to try it and work it for yourself. So I do understand that, but it's still stinking hard. But yes.
Oh, yeah, very. I mean, look at what's going on politically at the moment.
Yeah.
Technically, the people in charge at the moment are worthwhile, fallible human beings. Technically, they believe in what they do. Technically, there are people that love them and care for them. Technically, they do have good qualities, but there are an awful lot of people out there going, you are far too detrimental and you need to be removed.
Right. Okay. And then that kind of swings into the second question, doesn't it?
Yes. Well, to be perfectly honest, I think it went wrong the minute we stopped living in tribes of hunter-gatherers and wandering around being in tune with nature. The minute we stuck in one place, we just got it very, very wrong. When we lived in tribes, there was nothing materialistic. Everybody was equal. Fiercely egalitarian is the term that was coined. Everybody co-opted and lived in harmony with the tribe for the betterment of the tribe. As soon as we settled down and we decided we owned the land, everything became materialistic, capitalistic. It became patriarchal. It became this, it became that, and we've been messing it up ever since. And today, there is nothing about modern society that is good for our mental health and well-being. It's absolutely toxic. What I think we really, really need is a revolution. And it can't come soon enough.
Wow. Lauren, I think we've heard similar themes in this group coming from perhaps yourself. But yeah, very, very good. It reminds you of Jefferson, something about the eternal, the revolution that is needed every once in a while. But Daniel, some thick weeds there. Thank you. That was great. Anybody else have a question for Daniel today about REBT or other things that he said? Okay, I'm not seeing any.
I have one
Yeah.
if I could.
Yeah, please.
Going back to what you said about dogmatic thinking and when people use should and must to themselves, is there ever a time where that's helpful for people to do that or no?
Yeah, I mean, there are loads of contexts where you don't leap on that word at all. Let's see, I think I mentioned it in the book. I can't remember, to be honest. It's so long since I read it. Let's say that I know you socially. We meet for coffee. We're in a shop. There's cake. And I go, oh, look, chocolate gâteau. You must try some. There's that word must. I'm not being rigid. I'm not being dictatorial. I'm not being dysfunctional. I'm just making a recommendation. Try the cake is lovely, is what I'm saying. That's nice. That's helpful. Let's say it's the same coffee shop, only I'm late and you phone me up to find out where I am. And I go, I'm ever so sorry, traffic. I should be there in about 15 minutes. That's actually helpful. I'm just giving you my best guess. I'm making a prediction. We have what we call ideals. So I might say that the world should be fair, or I might say everybody should pick up their litter after them. Only I'm not saying it in a way that's disturbing myself. I'm not being rigid. I'm not being judgmental. I'm expressing an ideal. What I mean is, in an ideal world, things would be fair. In an ideal world, people would pick their rubbish up. And that's helpful because ideals just guide us. Unfortunately, what's helpful and not helpful, it's like a double-edged sword, and what we call conditional demands. Life places conditions on you. For instance, let's say I've got an exam coming up on Monday. Well, if I tell myself I absolutely have to pass it, I have to, it's a complete nightmare if I don't, that's a rigid belief that disturbs me. I'm going to be anxious. I'm going to be sleep deprived. My revision's going to be poor because my memory is going to be poor. So I'm less likely to do well. But if I'm just talking to you and saying, I have to pass this exam in order to get my promotion, it's become conditional. It's a statement of fact. ABC must happen, passing the exam, in order for X, Y, Z, the promotion, to take place. So life will impose conditions on you. Some conditions are helpful. They just let you know how you're supposed to be in any given situation. Some of them are a bit impressive, but that's just life. But the recommendations, the ideals, and the predictions, they're helpful expressions of the word must, mustn't, should, shouldn't.
As a quick follow-up to that,
Justin.
if you see if you know somebody who is imposing kind of rigid things on themselves, how do you address that? And if so, how do you address it?
And that depends on how well you know them. Could you just confront them and say, I think you're being very rigid and very hard on yourself? My favorite way of doing it is Socratically. So Socratic questioning is a part of the book. Socratic questioning is a part of philosophy because it comes from Socrates. And Socrates was very good at having conversations where he just asked questions that guided you to the answer. So most of us ask questions to get the answer. What time is it? Where's the post office? But you can ask questions like, okay, that's an interesting thing that you've just said. Is it true? Is it sensible? How are you going to act if you carry on thinking like that? What might be a better way of thinking, do you think? And it's a more Socratic conversation. Sometimes if you go in hard and fast, you get people's back up because their ego goes into defensive mode. But if you turn it into a questioning conversation, you can get them to arrive at the answer you already know. Oh dear, you're being rigid.
Great. Justin, thanks for those questions. Are you able to take a couple more, Daniel?
Yeah,
sure. Thank you. Yeah, Kim, you're up, and please unmute yourself.
Oh, thank you, Tim. And I'm not camera ready. I apologize.
Okay.
This is actually not a question, but it's a gratitude, if that's acceptable.
Yeah, sure.
I just want to thank you, Daniel, for the book. I'm a smart facilitator out of Minneapolis, in-person meetings, and we use REBT all of the time to try to help people. And I am going to be using the example from your book, with your permission, of course, the one about the guy who didn't think anything was good about himself. And you pointed out he's excellent at rolling a joint. And so I was like, all right, I really love this. So I just want to say thank you. And I grabbed a copy and hopefully it will be here soon. Who knows how long it'll take for paper to get here, but thank you so much.
You're very welcome. And thank you for saying so.
If I could just interject, Kim, thanks for sharing that. And if you wouldn't mind, shoot me a message in the app sometime, if you can. I'd like to know about what you're doing or what your program is. That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, right on. Can do that.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Tim.
And then Karen, you're next. What's your question? Please unmute.
Well, in Stoicism, we have our exercises and practices that we do. And I was wondering if you can share some of yours to kind of keep your mind in perspective and having that rational emotive quality.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a very recent example. I mean, sometimes I safely assume that after 20 years of practicing this as a therapist and a coach with other people, that I don't practice, I am. However, you do bump heads with adversity sometimes. So I've been in France now for 10 months on a 1 year long stay work visa. I was just dipping my toe in the water to find out if I liked it. I do. I'd like to renew the visa. But France is incredibly bureaucratic and none of it makes sense. None of it's joined up. And one person says this, one person says that. I was told that renewal would be very easy and you just do it online. But I went online. You can do it for any type of visa apart from mine. And it told me to go and book an appointment in the latest government office, which is about an hour's journey away from me. And you have to compile a dossier, and the dossier is huge. They want everything referenced. So I spent ages and ages compiling this dossier. It was color coded, it had tabs. I was very proud of it. I drove all the way there. He looked at it and went, well, this is incorrect for your type of visa. You need to do this by post. And I went, but your website said that I had to come here. And he went, well, it's wrong. And I went, but how can it be wrong? It's your website. And he said, well, you still have to do it by post. He said, there's a form. You print out the form, you fill out the form, you do what the form says, you send your dossier. And I said, where do I send it to? And he went, well, here. And I went, well, can I fill out the form now and just give you my dossier? And he went, no. And that was the end of the appointment. And I could have gone home that minute. I could have just got in the car and gone home, but I knew in my mind state that if I'd got in that car, it would have been a very ranting journey home. I probably would have driven too fast. I'd have probably been pulled up by somebody. I wouldn't have been a safe driver. So I just took a few moments. I had a coffee, I had a croissant, I sat in the sunshine, and I reminded myself that at the end of the day, I'm still in France. It's a beautiful day. It's 17 degrees. It's sunny. It could be worse.
Yeah.
And I calmed myself down before getting in the car. And then I just drove home normally and accepting of my situation. So yes, we still, doesn't matter how long you practice for, you can be it, but every now and then you still have to do it.
It could be worse. Wonderful story. I'm reminded of your friend's statement. Worse things happen at sea. I love that phrase from your book. Worse things happen at sea. Thank you for that.
Put in the chat box, the French invented red tape. Yes, they did. Only they're not very good at it.
Yeah, I'm just going to keep going until you tell me we have to stop. But I think Jay has
I'm happy to take questions until you run out of questions.
Perfect. Jay, go ahead. You're next.
Yeah, so question with REBT, how much is Stoic determinism incorporated into it, right? How much do we focus on identifying with the way that the mind values things, versus like, this is me doing it versus this is my conditioning. This is how my perspective has formed over time, just kind of a detachment from that identity.
That absolutely depends on you. How much of a Stoic are you? One of my colleagues studied Stoicism before. He's an REBT therapist, and he studied philosophy to master's level before he became an REBT therapist. And he takes his REBT to an insane philosophical degree. I've got another colleague who has a very, very scientific mind. So he doesn't reference philosophy at all, but he's completely on it with the absolute latest research. It doesn't matter what you present with, he knows the latest research to support how this will help you in your condition. So when you say, how much do you bring Stoicism into it? I'm kind of Stoic light. So I didn't study Stoicism specifically. It was an element of a degree from years ago. I've read books on it. And so it infuses my REBT rather than drives it. I like to, I pick up loads of other things as well. I don't just read Stoic philosophy, I read other systems. There's an excellent book, I think, actually, I hope it's available in America. It's called Philosophy for Everyday Living. It's by a journalist called Jules Evans, who hit rock bottom many years ago and had a breakdown, but was a philosophy major at university and thought, I wonder if there's anything in there that could help me. Realized that there was, decided to research it to find out why that it wasn't a therapy, and then found out that actually loads of therapies are using philosophy, and he wrote an entire book where philosophy marries up. So there are different schools of philosophy that marry up with different types of therapy. So, but you can be as stoic as you want within yours.
Okay.
That answers your question.
Yeah, kind of the part B.
Okay.
Is since, in my mind, the way these beliefs form, is through our experience, through the way that our mind values things. And preferences, once this value gets too high, it becomes a need, it becomes a desire. So how do we kind of tone that down, right? I mean, obviously we want to focus on preferences. The Stoic negative visualization, rehearsing what could happen is helpful. But, sometimes we just were so in it. We had our heart set on it. We thought it was a preference this whole time, and it's not. And now we're in trouble because we're not getting what we wanted. What are some things that we can do in those moments to kind of like, is it just a process of decreasing the value in our mind so we don't value it as highly?
It's never decrease the value of something that you want. So let's say that it was respect that you wanted. Never decrease your need for respect. Otherwise, you might turn yourself into a punch bag, a pushover. It's the need isn't the problem. The desire isn't the problem. How much you desire it isn't the problem. It's the minute that you turn it into a demand. Keeping it as a preference, you could very weakly prefer it. It's a little preference. It's a medium preference. It's an incredibly strong, very, 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 very preference. But as long as you still accept you don't have to have it, even though it's an incredibly strong preference, need, desire, value, you will be more rational and constructive in the face of that need not being met. Now, there is a whole lot of difference between a realistic need and an unrealistic need. Another little essence of Stoic philosophy that I like and I happen to agree with is that human beings disturb themselves by trying to control the uncontrollable.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a problem with that because very little in your life is actually fully under your control. Very little, if anything. There's a prayer I like. It's called the Serenity Prayer. It starts off with the word God, but you can use the universe, higher self, guardian angel. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and more importantly, the wisdom to know the difference. If your preference has turned into a demand and the demand is something that you've got no control over, drop the demand, drop the preference. How can you strongly prefer something that can't happen? Focus on the ones that you've got some sort of an influence over. So if it's a need and it's a desire and you think it can be met, go for it.
Very good. Thank you. We've got a couple more hands up here. Thank you, Daniel and Jay, for your question. Rick, what's your question for Daniel?
Daniel, this is not about this book, but just you referenced Druidry, and that piqued my interest. So just to go off track a little bit, a lot maybe, can you recommend any references for researching Druidry to me?
Oh, right. Yes, sure. There's an organization over here called the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids. I'm a member of them. Their website is a great resource. I mean, obviously, it's going to try and get you to join it. There are introductory packs and things like that, but it's also got just a reference list of really good books. My reading list is there's a book by a lady called Penny Billington called The Path of Druidry. That's very, very good. And there is just these are books that I favor. There's another book called The Way of Weird and the Wisdom of Weird. And it's kind of a marriage between shamanism and Druidry. Shamanism is a word that belongs to a particular culture, but you go back far enough, shamanism was all over the world, and it's what did indigenous Northern European shamanism look like? And it was basically Druidry, but they didn't call it that then. They called it something else.
Thank you. That was Order of Bards, Ovates, and Druids. Is that the one?
Yeah, OBOD, OBOD.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Rick. And then we have a question from Edith. Edith, go ahead.
So first I want to say thank you very much. This was absolutely thrilling and very enlightening.
Well, then you're very welcome.
I have a question and an observation. I'll start with the observation. I am a historian and an archaeologist, and I can pretty much assure you that people, when they live tribally, not live egalitarian lives. There were always the people who led and the people who followed. There were always the people who had more and had less. So I wouldn't glamorize tribal life in that manner, but that's me. The question is this. I belong to a number of meetup Stoic groups, and last night one of my other groups met, and we were talking about Epictetus, and we were talking about the first 10 chapters of the Enchiridion. And of course, the first one is the dichotomy of control. I was arguing that that word control, which is also sometimes translated as power, is not a good translation. And I much prefer the way that you stated that it is a matter of responsibility rather than control. And in the chat, we were having a fairly active discussion. There was a new person in there who was saying, well, obviously Stoicism treats us to just accept our lot in life. And how is that, fair? How it prevents us from responding to the evil in the world. And I said, no, that's not what Stoicism teaches at all. So I'd really like to hear your framing. Again, I don't believe Stoicism teaches passivity, but I'd really love to hear your framing of that.
Yeah, so what your friend in the chat room was talking about wasn't acceptance. He was talking about resignation, giving up in the face of adversity. That's not acceptance. I like to think of it. I can't remember what decade it was in. I think it was the 70s or the 80s. One of the best-selling self-help books of that time was a book by Stephen Covey called The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People.
Yes.
And there was a chapter devoted to what he called the circle of concern and the circles of influence. There are things in this world beyond your control. And so they would go in your circle of concern. They worry you. They're adversities. You don't like them, but they are things that you can do absolutely nothing about. They are going to play out however they play out, no matter what you do, no matter how you feel. Those you can accept, resign yourself to. The idea of don't even think about them. It's out of your hands. Into the circle of influence, you put the things that you can partially control, that you might be able to exert an influence over. So it's not about resignation. It's about putting your energy where it can do most good. Does that
Thank you.
answer
Well,
that?
I agree with that. I just wanted to hear how someone more expert than I am would frame that. So thank you for saying that.
Thank you for your question, Edith and Daniel. You've gone above and beyond today, Mr. Fryer, in responding to the group. And I'll just say, any last final? I think we should be. I want to be fair to Daniel here, who's really donated his time today. But any final questions? I think I can speak for the group that this has been just a wonderful conversation. Daniel, and if somebody is interested in, I don't know if you're open to individual therapy or online therapy or other. Do you have a place people can contact you?
Yeah, so my website is danielfryer.com. My email address is info@danielfryer.com, which is how you found me. At the moment, I work in an exclusively online capacity. So whether it's one-to-one coaching or therapy, whether it's workshops and webinars, whatever it is, I'm doing it all online from my cottage in the middle of a forest as I get more my CPD for the next several months. It's not just the Druidry, it's also ecotherapy practices as well, so that I can marry the two and bring them into the psychotherapy.
Wow. No one can accuse you of being single-minded. You have so many interests, Daniel. So that's wonderful. Before I officially say, I do see a hand from Rick. Rick, is that from our previous, or did you have another follow-up? One more final?
No, it
Okay.
just didn't go down when I was
Oh,
done.
all right. Very good. Daniel, I'm going to be try to be mindful here. It is almost noon in Florida. You're probably hitting dinner time. What
Yeah.
I'd like to do is wrap up this portion of our meeting. We've got about 30 to 35 minutes left to go. We can wrap up this part. You're welcome to stay on. If you have to run to your dinner there in France, you can do that. But again, I just want to thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope you get a lot more response to your work after our meeting.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. I am going to bow out at this juncture because I've got a very needy dog staring at me just over there, and it's high time that she had a walk.
Well, thank you again very much. And maybe we'll have you back in the Minnesota Stoics down the road.
Great.
Thank you, Daniel. All right.
Bye-bye.
I'm going to go ahead, for those of you staying with us, and I hope you are, I'm going to go ahead and re-share my screen here. And I think I just had I know there's a lot of content. Why don't maybe we should do this. I think we need a breath. That was almost an hour-long conversation. And then I thought we'd go into our breakout rooms for just a few minutes, maybe 5-ish minutes, and just if we could just introduce where we're calling, each person, where you're calling from, and then just if there's any ideas that resonated with you in the last hour, or you thought this is just a bunch of BS crap or whatever, we can talk about that briefly. Let me go up here. I want to stop my recording real quick here. Pause, stop. All right, and then I'm gonna